Finishing off this fantastic year is a final full build for you all. I hope you had some great holidays and are looking forward for the year to come. I'll be taking a bit of a break in January, but I will be leaving you with a take on this techno-terrorist, this temperamental toaster, Rammatra from Overwatch.
I do not fight for myself. I never have.
To put this mad machine together, we need to start off with some build goals. Rammatra was created as a robotic soldier, known as an Omnic, to serve in a war against humanity. But after his first battle, he tried to find peace at Shambali, a monastic order for Omnics. However, his hatred of humanity led to him abandoning them and creating the terrorist organization of Null Sector, dedicated to Omnic supremacy. More mechanically, Rammatra is a tank, which means that he innately reduces the knockback and critical damage that he receives. His main attack uses his staff to fire a stream of projectiles with Void Accelerator, while his secondary fire creates a void barrier at a targeted location for a short duration. He can enter a Nemesis form, granting him an extra pair of arms and making him quite a bit bulkier. This changes his main attack to a Shockwave Unleashing Pummel, and turns his void barrier into a block that protects him. Regardless of form, he can unleash a Ravenous Vortex that creates a slowing field, which also pulls airborne enemies down towards the ground. For his ultimate, we have Annihilation, which causes him to enter Nemesis form, but also unleashes a deadly nanite swarm and an aura around him to damage enemies and extending the duration as it does so. There's also apparently perks in Overwatch now, and the ones that stand out to me are Nanite Repair, which gives him healing while he's in his Ravenous Vortex, and another that allows him to detonate said vortex for extra damage. That gives us an interesting mix of abilities, notably with the switching between staff and wall creating to a big bionic brawler. I also want to make sure that we make a proper machine, and not one of those namby-pambies trying to look like a human ones. His Ravenous Vortex does kind of suggest some gravity manipulation powers, while Annihilation just lets him surround himself in a damaging aura, which you would think should be pretty manageable. Now, as I said, I want Rammatra to be a proper robot, and to encapsulate that idea, we will be using the Automaton ancestry. It's not quite perfect, with automatons being more magical constructs than straight up robots, but it's got the look. And it has the warrior heritage, fitting with Rammatra's original design as a literal war machine. We can further that idea with the reinforced chassis ancestry feat, as this turns his very body into armor that is honestly not great at first level, but will reach heavy level armors of good as he advances. As for his ability boost, the Automaton gives him an auto boost to strength, suiting his Nemesis form, but it also has a free boost at hold take to intelligence for reasons that shall soon become clear. Rammatra has been through a lot of things and worn a lot of hats, but I think the truest background to him is that of the Rebel. I like the warfare lore that this trains him in, though I do think the deception skill and its lie-to-me feat feel a little more awkward to include in his build. I still think the flavor is spot on, and so I will stick with it, and take the background boost to Constitution, since he's a tank, and then follow that up with a free boost to bolster his strength yet again. We will close out this year with a class that I've never actually built before as we look at the Solarian. This is the only fully released Starfinder class I actually haven't used yet. It is a strength-based martial class that comes with a wealth of options, and kind of feels like a hybrid between the Kineticist and a more typical combat class, almost a fighter. Case in point, their central ability is Attune, which can be used to manifest a Solar Flare, Nimbus, and weapon, the last of which is how I'm going to create his Nemesis form. The Solar weapon starts out as a 1d8 martial melee weapon that will have dealing bludgeoning damage, and equipped with the freehand and shove traits, while also putting it in the brawling weapon group. You could very easily flavor this as being his extra set of arms when he enters his Nemesis form, whereas that Solar Flare, or really a weapon of your choice, could suit his Void Accelerator. Along with all that, he also gets the Solar Shield class feat, which provides him with a shield as a solar manifestation that he can block with, which suits his ability of the very same name. As a Solarian, Rammatra is trained in athletics and will take further skill training in acrobatics, computers, diplomacy, intimidation, piloting, and religion. His ability boosts are mostly physical, going to strength, dexterity, and constitution, but also taking 1 to intelligence. The exact reasoning behind why will become apparent in just a level, but the others are meant to facilitate his nemesis form and help him stand on the front lines. Though we are going to take a step back from Solarian at 2nd level to seize a wizard dedication, which gives him training in Arcana and access to a pair of cantrips. Shield is a good one here for when his solar shield gets busted, and then you could also consider something to suit his Void Accelerator. We'll then tap into some computer skill feats starting with Freaker. The idea behind some of these computer skills that we'll be looking at is to help him in breaking the bonds of his bionic brethren, and this fits that idea. Stellar Resilience at 3rd level is a little bit of a different ability when it comes to saving throw based features. It makes him an expert in fort saves, but instead of the usual turning a success into a crit success, it allows him to attune when he succeeds on a fort or will save against a mental or incapacitation effect. He also gets a skill increase to make him an expert in computers, and follows that with adopted ancestry for the android. We've got the look down with the Automaton, but we'll need this for a few of the more techy feats. For the 4th level of this foul-ferrous fellow, we find basic wizard spellcasting, which immediately comes in handy as it gives him the gravitational pull spell. It isn't quite right, but the gravity manipulating powers and being able to pull down enemies could call to mind his Ravenous Vortex. He can also tap into Combat Hack as his skill feat, giving him a way to harmlessly disable the machines that are turned against him, or at least interfere with the ones that don't have the ability to become Omnics like him. Starting 5th level is ability boost to Strength, Constitution, Intelligence, and Wisdom. That increase to Intelligence makes him train in crafting, while his actual skill increase can make him an expert in Arcana. He also gains Solar Weapon expertise, and then grabs Arcane Eye as his ancestry feat. The android feats I'm looking for aren't quite here yet, and this provides him with Dark Vision, which is always useful. This build actually manages to cover Annihilation a little early, as this scrappy cyber supremacist seizes Constellation Vortex at level 6. It's very short range, only affecting creatures directly adjacent to him, but it does surround him in swirling damage that he can sustain for up to a minute, which I do think suits the general idea of his ultimate. He also grabs Digital Diversion for his skill feat, allowing him to use his computer skills to create a diversion, making it easier for him and his team of terrorists to carry out their tasks. Somewhat similar to the fighter, Solarians get Stellar Senses at level 7, which makes them a master in perception and gives them a bonus on initiative rolls. Weapon specialization is a bit more standard, and then there's of course the skill increase to make him a master in Arcana. From there, we build Barricade, not the bot, as his general feat, and to be a sort of poor man's Void Barrier. It doesn't last long and isn't nearly as impressive, but it'll work for now. We gain another Solarian feat at the Eminent level 8 in the form of Plasma Ejection. While the turn-to-turn emanation could vaguely resemble his Annihilation, I actually like the line effect to represent the shockwave released by his pummel. For his skill feat, I'll grab Quick Jump. Unlike the recent Lycon build, you actually can jump in Overwatch, so this will just make it a little easier for him to do so. I'm also not 100% on what else to get for him. We've already pulled a lot for computers, and Arcana is mainly for mechanical purposes. Though, I do want to mention, there is actually an important spell here, as he gains access to Gravity Well with his 3rd rank spells, getting him a way to pull down and disrupt foes at a range per his Ravenous Vortex. For 9th level though, we get Solarian Expertise, the oddly specific Stellar Partition, and then a skill increase to make him a master in computers. We do finally get some use out of his adopted ancestry, as we use Repair Module to resemble the healing of his Nanite Repair perk. This will help him stay on the field longer, and increases his survivability per his design as a tank. For his level 10 ability boost, he increases his Strength, Constitution, Intelligence, and Charisma. Once again, he gets to become trained in a new skill such as Society, and then he gets a class feat and skill feat. For the first, we'll use Black Hole, which provides Rammatra with a way to drag down enemies per his Ravenous Vortex. We do have other spells we're going to use for that, so if you feel like you have enough options for it, I'd look at Nimbus Ward for his block, or Twin Weapons since he does actually have 2 fists. Well, 4 technically, but 2 that he uses. Then, for the skill feat, we have Magical Shorthand. Rammatra has access to a few ranks of spells now, and this makes it easier for him to learn and pick up new spells that he might be able to make use of. Our temperamental terror-tending toaster takes Armor Expertise with level 11, as well as a skill increase to become an expert in Athletics, playing into his physical side a bit more. He also gains Toughness, which might seem like an obvious pickup when it comes to representing a tank character. and that's because it is an obvious choice, just one that it took us a bit to get to. With 12th level, we gain Expert Wizard Spellcasting. Aside from increasing his spell proficiency, the big thing is that this lets him start tapping into some of the wall spells, such as Wall of Fire or Mirrors, to perhaps better represent his Void Barrier, or at least do so more potently. We'll also get Rabid Mantle this level. While Solarians do get decent reflex saves, Rammatra's strength is much higher than his dexterity, and his athletics will eventually be better as well. So this is simply superior selection. Lovely Lucky level 13 mainly features Solarian Weapon Mastery, and then a skill increase to make him a master in athletics. Perhaps more importantly though, he also gains Lesser Augmentation, which he'll use to enhance his reinforced chassis. Through this, he gains a reaction akin to Fortification, which actually manages to resemble the critical damage reduction innate to the tank class in Overwatch. I didn't think I'd be able to fit this in, but it's kinda cool that I was. From there, our Vortex gets a bit more ravenous with level 14's Singularity. Now admittedly, the issue is that it only actually pulls in prey when it kills them, but it does give him a gnarly burst to throw out there, and it does actually have the slowing effect of his Vortex. He also gets Powerful Leap, just to get a bit more physical. While on the Mystic side of things, there's some more wall spells, which he can now make from Ice or Stone. Reaching into this rampant robo-racist level 15, he starts with ability boost to Strength, Constitution, Intelligence, and Wisdom. That Intelligence doesn't get high enough to give him a new skill this time around, but he does become a Legend in Arcana with the standard skill increase, and then also gains Gravitas and Greater Weapon Specialization. Rounding out the level is Die Hard, making it hard to put him down for good, as much as we wish otherwise, and suiting the survivability of a tank. For his level 16, I've actually almost talked myself out of Shattering Impact. I like the idea of him being landing a heavy blow with Pummel, but while it adds a die of damage, that doesn't scale, and the attunement effects feel minor for the disharmony effect it comes with. You could look at some of the other feats I mentioned earlier, such as Nimbus Ward or Twin Weapons, if I've also managed to talk you out of it. I am much more confident though about Unified Theory as a skill feat, letting him use Arcana for any nature, occultism, or religion checks that might be asked of him. Speaking of Arcana and the magic of it that he uses, I think Wall of Force might be the best fit for his Void Barrier, at least when it comes to resembling it, as he gets it at this level. Looking at the next level of 17, we have Armor Mastery, Solarian Mastery, and then Legendary Proficiency in Athletics. We can go for Nanite Form as his ancestry feat here, drawing on the android options and his machine nature for something that might vaguely resemble his Annihilation. Though, in this case, he's the damaging swarm rather than just the epicenter of it. Now, after all the investment we've put into it, it's probably not a surprise that we take Master Wizard Spellcasting at level 18. It might offer some more walls, but there's another spell that I have in mind. We just have to wait a few levels to get to it. Until then, we'll slip Cloud Jump into the build, just to try to take advantage of the legendary athletics that we've achieved. We close out on class features with Stellar Paragon, making him a legend specifically with his Solar Flare and Weapon, as well as a skill increase to become a legend in computers. His final general feat is Robust Health, sticking with the survivability options that I've been talking about for his last few general feats, and helping him stick in the fight that much longer. But that does bring us to the end with level 20. Here, we get ability boost to Strength, Constitution, Intelligence, and Wisdom, though it's worth noting that that intelligence increase will make us trained in survival. However, before we get into his final class feat or his skill feat, the last class feat we took gives us a single 8th rank spell, and among them, we can find Gravity Field. This might actually be the best fit for his Ravenous Vortex with the pillar it affects, and the callout for flying creatures. Plus, they don't get a save. After that, we've got Cosmic Alignment, which is one of those permanently quickened feats, but can be used to attune, so that he can get set back up after a Shattering Impact, or strike with one of his solar manifestations. Finishing off the build in totality is Hologram Skeptic, which I can easily envision being a useful skill to have in the world of Overwatch, though I'll need you guys to tell me if there's any agents that actually use holograms at this point. Perhaps more important than that though, is figuring out how to play Rammatra. Honestly, while he doesn't have quite the lockdown of a Guardian, he is a very solid disruptor. You can easily engage enemies on the front line, bringing your Constellation Vortex to bear, dragging enemies that attempt to escape it back to you with Black Hole or Gravitational Pull. You can provide further protection to your allies with properly placed wall spells, and even when things start looking rough, you can switch on your repair module to just keep trucking. You honestly have a wealth of options to make use of, but be sure to get some strikes in there when you can, because the Solarian is still meant to be a martial combatant. Now that being said, the Wizard is still a solid archetype to make use of in a free archetype game, and outside of creating opportunities for him to take some of the Solarian feats I mentioned in the build, he could also use the Arcane School spell, or Arcane Breath feats from it. Beyond that though, I'd probably really switch it up and go for a Barbarian dedication. The Rage could honestly really suit his Nemesis form, though I'd definitely look at Furious Finish so that he can exit this state. Other than that, you can also tap Monk for a late Wild Winds Initiate, for the shockwaves of his pummel while he's in Nemesis form. But that's our bot built. Is everything in working order, or is he still on the fritz? Let's review and find out. Rammatra is a warrior automaton Solarian with a background as a rebel. By taking the adopted ancestry for the android, and using some of its nanite options, we can make Rammatra more properly a modern machine, rather than a merely magical construct. His heritage itself is a nod towards his origin as a literal war machine, whereas the rebel background calls to mind his founding of Null Sector. We build him into as much of a tank as possible with the likes of toughness and reinforced chassis, which notably can get a lesser augmentation to cover the critical damage reduction that tanks in Overwatch get. For his Void Accelerator, I think you have a few options, ranging from simply using his Solar Flare, to picking up an appropriate weapon, or even finding a suitable cantrip for it. The Void Barrier does take a little bit longer to come online, starting with the Innocuous Barricade, and covering a few wall spells before landing on his Wall of Force. Now I believe that we can express his Nemesis form through his ability to attune to the cosmos as a Solarian, manifesting a pair of big meaty claws for his solar weapon that can land heavy blows of his pummel through Shattering Impact, or blast a lineup of louts with Plasma Ejection. For the more personal protection provided by Block, he has his Solar Shield, Potential Shield Cantrip, and that aforementioned Reinforced Chassis. As for his Ravenous Vortex, Gravity Field might be the best fit for it, but the likes of Gravity Well and even Singularity aren't remotely bad either. Rounding out his baseline abilities is Constellation Vortex for his Annihilation, though you might find yourself doing some cycling Plasma Ejections or even Nanite form if you want another way to explore it. Beyond all that, the build even managed to figure out his Nanite Repair, through the Repair Module Ancestry feat, further helping him hang in the hassle to hand out head thumpings. This rancorous, rebellious robot reveals a raging right to rend and ruin his ruling rivals, then returns to a more regal recognition to run his retinue of revolutionaries. Let me know what you think of this build, as well as what other sorts of builds you'd like to see in a comment. If you like what you see here and want more, be sure to leave a like, and then subscribe to the channel. You can also check out the blog, which is linked below, along with the Twitter and Discord. As always, thanks for watching, and have a fantastic Friday. But also have a Happy New Year. I'll see you all again in February.
Show me what you've got.